Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing editor here at Cinema Blend and co-host of the ReelBlend podcast, and I am back to introduce a new episode, but not to say to you guys that we're not going to have a full episode of ReelBlend this week. We will. We're going to get together and record tomorrow, but as I mentioned last week when I had to do one of these little introductions, is that we had a lot of really great interview opportunities, and so this one today is going to be a bonus episode that you guys just get additionally because we've had so many cool people to talk to. Ludwig Göransson is the composer for, specifically, most recently, Christopher Nolan's film Tenet, but his credits up until this point, even though he's a very young composer, have been astronomical. He worked with Ryan Coogler on the Creed franchise and followed him over to Black Panther. He has done the music for The Mandalorian and is now collaborating with Christopher Nolan. And so you know that he's a great fit for the ReelBlend podcast. We were able to work out through his reps a chance to get him on the show, and we have a fantastic conversation about his process, working in reverse with music, bringing a recognizable theme to the Marvel Cinematic Universe for both Wakanda and Black Panther. And we talk a little bit about the Rocky theme song. So without further ado, a bonus episode of ReelBlend this week, in addition to our full show. It is our interview with Tenet composer Ludwig Göransson.
Here we roll. All right. Well, first of all, Ludwig, thank you so much for joining our show. This is an absolute honor to have you on. I've now seen Tenet 11 times. I've listened to your vinyl a lot. I think it's an incredible score, one of the greatest scores I've heard in a long time. But for our audience, I wanted to kind of go through your journey. Obviously, working with Coogler, meeting Coogler in school, and kind of your journey to Nolan, and just kind of the working relationship that you have with Ryan Coogler, and kind of like how different it was with Christopher Nolan. Two very different filmmakers, obviously. You've known Ryan for a longer time. So I just wondered if you could talk about that journey and that relationship you have with both.
Well, I'll start with Ryan Coogler because that's the beginning of my professional career, which started about 2007 when I met him at USC. He was actually one of my first American friends. I just moved here from Sweden, and I just bumped into him randomly at my dorm. I was staying on like this fraternity street at USC. I had no idea what a fraternity was, but this fraternity got thrown out from, it was called Phi-Side. They got thrown out because they had too many like crazy drug parties. So this year was only open for grad students. So I moved in there somehow. And as soon as I moved in there, I felt like I was a part of like a American Pie movie. Like just looking, like all the girls were living on the other side of the streets on the sorority houses, and all the guys, everyone looked the same. Everyone was like walking around outside my window with these like red styrofoam cups. And I've only seen that in movies before, but meanwhile I was like in my little room, like with headphones, trying to like write music, and like everyone's like partying, like, bro, what's up? But not that much party for me, because that year in school, in grad school, was great, but it was also pretty hard, like hardcore in like terms of like how much we had to do. But one of my first friends that I bumped into was Ryan Coogler, and we played pool together, and we just started talking about films and music, and he started mentioning, like, he started talking to me about Swedish artists, because I told him I'm from Sweden, and he was like asking me about like all these Swedish artists like Robin, Lykke Li, Little Dragon, and I was just surprised that he knew about all these Swedish artists. And then we started talking about film, and a couple of months later, he like called me and asked me if I wanted to score his little short film called Locks. And wow. And it was interesting because we had a class together by a professor. His name is Kenny Hall, and he was a music editor working in the business for like 50 plus years. So he's been working with John Williams. I think he was a music editor on E.T. So he was like John Williams. He was also like Jerry Goldsmith's main music editor. And he had a class which was really unique for USC and really important, which was the class that put directors and composers in a room together, looking at film, talking about sound and music, which was pretty unusual. And it was so great because that class really made Ryan aware of how important it is with music, but mostly sound. Like a lot of the conversations was just about sound. And Ryan's first short didn't have any dialogues. It was just sound and music. So already from like our first collaboration, Ryan told me how, we talked about how sound was important, how we incorporate sound into music, and how really work with those two elements together, because that's one of the main points that was taught to us by Kenny Hall, was taught to us by Kenny Hall. So from that beginning to, the next short film, his 508 film, his first feature, which came right out of school, Fruitvale Station.
Oh, masterpiece.
And through all those projects, we worked on like incorporating sound design in the score. So like for Fruitvale Station, we incorporated music from the BART train station in the score. And then moving on to Creed, we incorporated music from like the gym and the boxing gym and like the jump ropes. And like I took elements from that, incorporating that in the music, in the score, made beats out of that. And then our next movie, which was Black Panther, which was like a completely different journey, but it very much, it's all projects and films that are completely different from each other, but they still have the same, the same creator. So we're just, even though we're working on this $200 million movie, we're still so excited, and we're still in the same space that we, it still feels sometimes like we're students sitting in a little dorm working on a little student film together.
Wow. And then to Nolan, a very different collaboration, I would imagine. What are those differences?
Yeah, and then to Nolan, and it's funny because I think I remember Coogler telling me that Christopher Nolan came to I think it was the Creed premiere, like the first screening of Creed, and Chris told him how much he liked the music, and like Ryan just started like talking about me for like 10 minutes, and so I think that's the first time maybe that Chris heard my music in a film, and he just, for me, it felt like out of the blue, but he reached out to me about, this was 2 years ago, to just meet. And I really had no idea what it's about, but, Chris Nolan is one of my, he's one of everyone's favorite director. He's the way he's influenced film, and he's like he is such a master creator, of new IP and like new ideas and like new inventions, and it's like the way he's reforming film and the way music works in his films is incredible. If you're a composer and if you're into music, you definitely paid attention to his films.
Yeah.
And they've had a tremendous like impact in my career. Like when I saw Batman Begins, was the first Chris Nolan film I saw in a theater, and like that impact of that film, because it was like one of the first times I had an experience in a theater where like the music, almost like I was like on a live concert. The music is so much of a character of itself, and you're sitting there, and like the way that also Chris understands the mixing and music and how he puts it in the mix. It's like it's such a upfront feeling, so you can feel it in your chest, you can feel it in your whole body, almost like you're on a live concert. So
it's like Zimmer will do those live performances, if
Hans
Zimmer does a live
Zimmer
performance.
live. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And what they did together with film and music just kind of changed the whole way of making cinema for the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years.
Yeah. Remarkable.
Wow.
So obviously when he calls and wants to meet, I was like, I'm there in a split second. And so we met up. I went home to him, and we had a little meeting, or we actually had a long meeting, which lasted for like, first meeting lasted for like 6-7 hours. And we just ended up talking and listening to music. He was playing me a bunch of music that inspired him through his career, and I played him some music that inspired me, and we're drinking a lot of tea and listening to music, and just had a great time. And he ended the meeting by like asking me if I wanted to come back to the day after and read the script for his new film.
Wait, Ludwig, how does that work? Is it like an iPad shuffle? Are you guys on YouTube? Are you pulling records off the wall? How does it work? Nolan must have a record player, I assume.
Yeah, it's mostly CDs and
Okay.
vinyls.
Okay.
So he has a great CD collection, and also like he knows so much about film, obviously, but also so much about film music. So it was almost like I was getting like a little film music class as well, because there's a lot of things that I missed out on, that he knows, and I think we also pulled up some stuff on YouTube at one point, but mostly CDs and vinyl.
That's awesome.
Wow. Ludwig, I want to narrow in on Tenet for a second. It's a movie that one of the things we've talked about on this podcast is how much better it gets every time you watch it. I think I've seen it maybe 6 or 7 times. Kevin's seen it about 600 or 700 times. And you know, one of the narratives that came out of Tenet is that it is a complicated film, and it is difficult to understand. You really have, I mean, Robert Pattinson has made jokes about how he didn't entirely understand it. I'm curious as to how your initial understanding of it was. Like, did you get it entirely? And how does your ability to understand the film affect your ability to be able to score it?
Yeah, I mean, I started out reading the script before I saw it. So even from the get-go, like I was, it took me a little bit of a longer time to read it, because there were some parts that were a little bit complicated to read on the paper. That was actually easier to see in the movie, like for example, like some of the action scenes, like that.
Sure.
That's easier. It was actually easier for me to watch in the film. But but when I read a script, I feel like what's important for me is kind of the environments, and also just the general what is I say? I remember reading the script. It was like a big, it was extremely ecstatic, and I was sitting in a room in an office, and just by myself, I had the script in front of me, and I just remember finishing it and just reading that last couple lines, which is like Robert Pattinson's voiceover in the end. It was like, oh God, extremely moved how beautiful it was. And that was kind of the feeling that I took away from it. And also another thing I took away from it was just the hugeness of the film, like how many locations there are at, like a lot of, because when I read a script, I start hearing like a lot of the sounds and where there aren't, like all the, like the windmills, for example, or like the wind energy farm, like that, those places, the fire engine scene, like fire truck sounds and alarms, and like, I don't know, I get a lot of input from just reading about the space and the locations. But I don't think, I definitely didn't like understand exactly what was going on at points, but I didn't feel like I needed to either.
Kevin jokes all the time. He says, like, you don't have to understand it, you just have to feel it, kind of.
That's it.
Well,
That's the one. Yeah. She
Yeah.
tells you how to watch the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to zero in on the track Posterity, which is a little over 12 minutes long. I think is that the longest film track that you have released?
Possibly, yeah. That sounds about right.
I'm curious about like what dictates the length of a track. Like a film track, when we look at soundtracks, they 3 minutes, 4 minutes, often driven by a scene. When you get a 12-minute, bit of sequence, and even the way that Nolan sort of uses moments of posterity, you hear it throughout the film. Is it something that you hand over to him and allow him to choose where it goes, and what dictates the length of something like that?
Yeah, I mean, so I like to get to work as soon as possible. So as soon as I read the script, I started to work. Like I'm starting out with ideas. And Chris was also very adamant of that's how he likes to work as well. Like that's why he gets his composers really involved at a very early stage. He's finished the script, he sends it over to his composer. You start reading it, you start having conversation, because that's also at the time when you have time, you can spend some time with the director. Because when he or she is shooting the film, like if you get a phone call once a month, you're lucky. They're
Wow.
so busy when they're shooting the film. They've thousands of decisions to make every hour. And then after they shoot the film, like the process of editing is also, it's you're in a different mindset. But when the director is prepping for their film, that's when they're they're prepping for the location, the production design, the costumes. Why not start with the music there as well? Because you're building a universe, and that's especially what Chris is doing with his films. Like, he's creating its own DNA, he's creating his own universe. And so we started building our own musical universe like 6 months before they started shooting. So every week I would be in my studio, just write music based off our conversations, based off the script. And then every other week I would go to his office and we would tracks like over and over and over again, dissect them every sound by sound, and dissect the melodies that Chris likes and the melodies that he gravitates to, the ideas that he thinks could be more elaborate and the things that doesn't work, and take those ideas further and further and develop them. So some of these cues and some of these songs you hear in the film are actually, some of them are written before they start shooting. For one of the cases, the rainy night in Talon, which opens the whole film, the prologue, like Chris that was the first scene we had to finish, because I don't know if you guys remember, but they released that scene before Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah.
So, a couple of months into our collaboration, Chris was like, okay, well, now I want you to start writing an action piece. And he told me about the scene. I read the script too, and he told me how it starts, with the tuning of the orchestra, and then something like he basically has the idea of the arrangement, even though he doesn't have any music, but he's communicating in a very, very great way where I understand where it needs to go. So I wrote like a 5-minute piece of music. I sent it to him. We worked on it for 2 more months, and then I didn't hear from him until he took off the shoot, and then I didn't hear from him for a while because they were traveling around the world. But I remember getting a letter from Talon where he was like saying that they were about to shoot the scene, and he's been listening to my track, and I think he also said it's like raining in Talon, and it's like when he was writing this email or letter. Oh. And he was like, the one thing I want to change in this track is like maybe 3 minutes in, the terrorists are coming, so what if we make it the synths, the arpeggios a little bit more distorted there. And so I remember going back to my studio I changed the name on the track to like Rain Night in Talon. I did that little change, and I didn't think more of it until like 3 months later when they went back in LA and started editing that scene. And he basically just put my track, I didn't know what I was going in to see, but he basically put that track on that first edit. And I saw it, and it was like, I blew my mind because it almost felt like he had filmed the whole sequence to my music.
Wow. That piece of score blows my mind. Like I told you, I've seen the film 11 times. I will literally go upstairs in my house, and that part, it's at 2 minutes and 49 seconds when the bass drops. It's like boom, 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 and like I love the way, like the guitar and the bass element of it. It's just so incredible, and I love that he used some of your score in the trailers as well, which is amazing. You don't really see that a lot. I want to ask you about, and this is probably a question you've probably gotten, but I'm actually interested in how it works from a process perspective. I know that a lot of the filming was done backwards. A lot of the actors were actually fighting backwards, blinking backwards, speaking backwards, and I believe you wrote some of the music and it was played backwards. Can you, correct me if I'm wrong, but how is that even done? Like, do you write it backwards, or do they just reverse the notes? Is it rewound? Can you talk about that process of having music backwards?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously one of the first thing I got from the script, the theme of inversion, and how big part of it plays in the movie. And like inverting music is something that people done for hundreds of years. Like Bach did it in his compositions. You write something on the paper. It's like you write it from top to bottom, and then you play it from bottom up, and it's the same piece of music. And that's something I remember studying a little bit in high school. It's how you can just write a melody, a 12-note melody, and then have it be the same from backwards and forwards. So I knew it's like, okay, well that'll be fun to kind of get back to the theory books and like start writing a little bit of music like that. but the thing is, when there's a lot of different ways to invert music, but that way of inverting music, the listener, the audience, they're not going to experience it sounding backwards.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
So how do you make the audience experience and experience it like it's sounding backwards? And the only way to do that is to reverse it digitally or in the computer. So, and now today it's so easy. You can just I can take a music program, I press one button and it reverses the audio. But depending on what sound it is, it's going to sound different. Most likely it's going to sound different backwards than what it did forwards. And so how can you take a sound? What kind of sound do you take to make it sound exactly the same forwards and backwards? So basically, that all depends on the attack of the sound. Like if I say something like ba, or like a rim shot, or like a big drum hit, that has a very hard attack. So if you play that backwards, it's gonna sound like something is it's gonna sound reversed, but it's not gonna sound the same thing as if it's played forwards. But if I have a sound like a slowly, if it's a note like if the attack is the same as the end, fade in, fade out, and I reverse it, it's going to sound the same. And one of the ideas that came out early from Chris and from our conversations was that I was talking, because we were listening to something on a CD player, and I was looking at a CD player, and I was talking about how one of the first times I ever composed, or I felt like I was producing music, was when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I was at the house, I was home, and was playing with my parents' audio system and the radio, and I was sitting with the volume knob and like turning it up and down, and I was talking about how that kind of movement in music and movement in how you can listen to music today is kind of gone, because there's no volume knobs like that anymore. Like kids only have up and down on. You have to press the button, right, multiple times.
Right.
And that was basically the origin for Neil's theme. Yeah. Because his music and his theme is chords played on and then manipulated through a volume filter up and down. Like it's almost like waves coming up and down. So it plays, depending on its movement in the timeline, you can play this forwards and backwards, and it will sound the same. And there's a bunch of stuff like that throughout the whole score. The most challenging part, I would say, is the whole scene that's called the red room, blue room scene, where it's one of my favorite scenes, and I have a lot of favorite scenes, but it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie because it's so beautiful. The colors are so beautiful. It's also such an incredibly difficult executed thing to do as an actor, because they had to learn their lines backwards. And you see, and the way you see it from the two different perspectives is something I've never experienced before watching a screen. And so basically, what the music is just doing exactly the same thing as the camera and the actors and the story. So it's the same piece of music played backwards first, and then the second half plays forwards.
Wow. Oh man, it's amazing.
That's unbelievable. Ludwig, I'm a big Star Wars fan, so I would be remiss if I didn't try to squeeze in a question about The Mandalorian. I guess just as someone who, I literally I have to be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I will wake up at 3:30 in the morning to make sure that I can see the episode so that I don't have it spoiled for me. Because Disney Plus, they're so secretive about all the plot points and when certain things are going to happen, and all of our minds were blown when Luke Skywalker showed up. But as someone who has to compose the music for the show, how are you given all the plot points and told, and how are you presented with the storyline so you know if the music fits? And I guess specifically, like, when did you find out about the Luke Skywalker moment in order to be able to properly compose that?
John Favreau gave me a heads up like pretty early in season 2 about it. He was like, and the way that he does it is, he's so smart, because he's really good at keeping secrets.
Even from you.
Even from me, but he is. I knew about it, and I knew about the obviously the reveal of the baby in season 1, which why it worked so well was that because John was able to keep it a secret. It was a surprise for everyone that saw it.
Yeah.
And same thing with Luke, and it's just he knows the importance of surprise elements, especially in today's world. Like nothing is a surprise anymore. So it was just something that he kept very tight to, like just the closest collaborators. And like whenever I worked with it, we had it, on everything was like blurred out and it was black screened. But he knew that also the importance of me, like of me thinking, like knowing about this and also planning to write this music, because so I think halfway into the season, he showed me like an early version of that. I came by and he showed me an early version of that scene, and I was, I was very surprised, like everyone else. But it was so beautiful, but it was also really important because I needed a couple of months to kind of process it and just starting to think about what to do for that moment.
You did a great job. It was a beautiful work.
Ludwig, I have a very quick one, and then I would like to get your thoughts on Black Panther. One, because you worked on Creed, I would love to know where you rank Bill Conti's Rocky score on the list of all-time film scores.
Oh, I mean, it's definitely top 5. I haven't really done a top 5 of film scores, but it's definitely top 5 of all time, because I would say after Star Wars, it's probably the second most known film's music.
Right? Yeah. I know.
Unless I'm wrong, right?
No, that's got to be. It has to be one of them up there for sure, 100%.
And probably for one demographic, it's even more known than Star Wars. Like for.
It's a great way to wake up in the morning too. It gets you going. It gets your heart racing automatically. Because of recognizable theme songs, one of the things that I think the conversation that swirls around the Marvel films is that the heroes, sometimes are lacking a theme, a traditional hero theme. We grew up on obviously the John Williams Superman theme and Danny Elfman's Batman and Spider-Man themes. And so when you were working on Black Panther, I'm curious, is that even something that Marvel is aware of? Is that something that they discuss as well too? Or is that fans kind of, trying to attach music to specific moments and specific characters? Do you look to get like a Black Panther theme to the character?
Absolutely. I think it's, I've worked with Ryan for a while now, and that was obviously a very important thing for us to really put our own spin on this character and give this whole universe a different sound and make it sound like a different, like Wakanda, that we would understand it. We were understanding that Wakanda is completely different from any part of the other place of the world. It's a fictional place, but it's also very real because it's technically a place in Africa that was uncolonized, but also has the most technology in the world. So it was definitely in our conversations from very early on that we needed a very specific sound for this character and for this world.
Ludwig, I'll end on this because I think we have 2 minutes left. So I just wanted to say thank you for joining us, because genuinely Tenet is one of the most incredible films I've ever seen. I went and saw it in theaters in IMAX 4 times just because I wanted to get that sound, and that the way the 747 scene climax is that dun 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 dun. I just want to know, like, when you write something like that, like the epicness of what that moment feels like in your mind, and then when you see it with that gigantic 747 that they actually purchased and really crashed. I just want to know what goes through your mind when you see your own music. I know you explained it with Rainy Night in Talon, but when you see something like that on screen, when he's shooting it in 65mm IMAX and it's full scope 1:3 aspect ratio, your music's just jumping. And like you said earlier in the interview, that's what the beauty of Chris Nolan is that he allows the composer's music to be just as important as a leading character as anybody else on screen. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts are on watching scenes like that and hearing that just pumping through a system just knowing.
Did you see it in a theater? Did you get to see it in a theater?
Oh, I saw it. I don't know, 20 times, 30 times maybe.
Oh, he beat you, Kevin. He beat you.
You've seen it more than me. This is. But yeah, what's it like to hear that music to those scenes like that, especially that and just those that one bass note, that boom, like that, and at the beginning, it's so freaking badass. Just wanted to know what your thoughts are on just watching it and hearing it.
Thanks. No, it's. I mean, I saw when we start to mix the film. For the theater, we actually mix it in the theater. So every Friday we watch the film down, and so we were able to see it in the theater, which is great. And actually, when we started working on this film, the way Chris works is that while he starts to edit every Friday, he invites the team over and we watch it from the top to bottom, the whole movie every Friday. So. Which is great because Monday to Saturday to Thursday I'm at the studio and I'm trying out different ideas, and then on Friday I'm presenting it and we're watching it in the film, and then we have time to talk about it. And we did like that every Friday for I don't know 9 months maybe or something like that, and it was such an important part of the process because being able to experience it in its whole like that is very important to kind of get a consistent sound and consistent through line. But I like I said earlier to Kevin, one of the fun things about this project was that there was so much music created just based on our conversations and reading the script. And the 747 track was one of the early ideas that I did just based on the script. And it was almost like he shot it to the music as well, and I remember seeing it for the first time and how he edited the scene to my music, and it was I almost started laughing because it was so perfect and funny. It just felt like it was like a, what do you call, a monster. The 747 feels like a monster, right? It feels like the huge King Kong or this crazy thing coming, and it's I don't know, I didn't have that envision when I was writing that piece of music, but it just came to life in a different way and
you tap Nolan on the arm and be like, I wrote that. That's my music.
that whole piece of music is amazing. I like how it starts off all calm as they're putting their stuff through security, boom, 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 and then it's dun, dun. It's just so cool, man. Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah, but it's a really great way of working because I like that way of working, and that's how I prefer. Because when you start as a composer, when you start writing to picture, sometimes it's hard to write longer form of music, and you start just writing you start the picture can sometimes hurt you, and you don't write because there's not a lot of scenes or cuts that are longer than 30 seconds. So when you want to write long form, I kind of prefer to do it just based on a conversation or just based on the script, because then you can write longer ideas. And that, just like Posterity, for example, you can write a 12 minute piece of music, and it's a long form way of writing, and I like that a lot.
Well, we got to get you out of here, Ludwig. We really appreciate you coming on the show. It's an absolute honor, and I hope you know that how much your music has meant to cinema, and your Tenet score is one of the greatest scores I've ever heard in my life, and I genuinely mean that. And I want to say thank you for your time.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great talking to you guys, and keep it up.
All right, we'll have you back.
Congratulations on the second baby. Yeah. Congratulations.
All right, thanks,
and if you ever want to do the top 5 score countdown, please come on our show and do it. We can all do it together.
We'll do it together.
We would like to thank Warner Brothers for giving us time with Ludwig. Obviously, we had a lot of fun with him. Really great composer. He was joining the show to promote the fact that his score and music composed originally for Tenet is now available. There's a vinyl edition that you can collect, and if you're watching us on the YouTube channel, you saw Kevin hold it up. It's also available all different places that you can get digital music downloaded, and of course, Tenet is now available at home, specifically on a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray and digital release too. So all the different ways that you can see Tenet, just not in the theaters anymore, the way Nolan really wants you to see it. But that's okay. I'm sure most of you guys tried your best to go out and see it in that proper format. I love the fact that Ludwig talks about the fact that he saw it like every Friday while he was working on it. Just an incredible bit of information from him and made me super jealous. Okay, we'll be back with a full episode this week. We're going to have director Tim Story joining us, talking about his collaborations on the animated film Tom and Jerry, and also diving a little bit into his work on the Fantastic Four. Really great conversation about 3D animation and bringing the Warner Brothers films both to theaters and to home entertainment. So make sure you check that out here. If you're on the new YouTube channel, make sure you go down and hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and give the ReelBlend channel a follow, because every single time that we post a new video like this, it gets posted right here. You guys can be the first ones to come and watch it.